Her uncle killed her parents and took the throne, not knowing the lost heir was still alive. The moon hung low over Eldoria, its silver light spilling across the palace walls like a warning. Inside, the grand halls were silent, but the stillness was broken by the sound of shadows moving swiftly across marble floors. In the deepest hall of the palace, a figure cloaked in darkness stepped carefully, eyes glinting with ambition. Lord Malrek, the king's brother, had long waited for this night. Every secret corridor and hidden passage of Eldoria's palace had been memorized, every guard's routine studied. He moved without a sound, as though the walls themselves guided him toward the throne he had coveted for years. Tonight, he would claim it, not with honor but with blood. The king and queen slept, unaware of the betrayal unfolding. King Alaric, proud and just, believed his brother loyal. Queen Seraphine, radiant and wise, believed in the strength of her family. Both would soon learn the cruel truth of ambition. Malrek stepped into the royal chamber. His hand was steady as he drew the dagger from his cloak. Every heartbeat felt like a drum in the silence. In a moment the crown of Eldoria would be his. And yet, as he looked at his brother and sister-in-law, memories of their shared childhood flickered in his mind. He shook them away. Memories could not stop him now. The blade fell. Screams shattered the night. The palace guards rushed in, but Malrek had anticipated them. Shadows moved faster than steel, and soon the king and queen lay still. Their daughter, the infant Princess Aelwyn, should have been killed next, but fate had a different plan. A court seer, an old woman who had served the royal family for decades, had prepared for this moment. Hidden in her robes was a small, enchanted cradle. With trembling hands, she scooped up the baby and whispered an ancient spell. The child's cries softened, fading into a silence no one could hear. With one final glance at the throne now stained with blood, the seer slipped into the night, carrying the future of Eldoria with her. Years passed, and the palace fell under Malrek's cruel rule. He wore the crown, but it weighed heavily on him. The people whispered of famine, war, and strange omens. Crops failed. Rivers ran dark. Even the birds seemed to avoid the land. Malrek ignored it all, blinded by power, unaware that the lost heir still lived. Far away, in a quiet village near the forest's edge, a young woman moved among the people. Her hands were skilled in healing, her touch gentle and sure. Her hair, black as midnight, framed a face that held both strength and sadness. She was known as Aelwyn, though no one remembered her real name. Strange things seemed to follow her, plants that grew faster under her care, wounds that healed in her presence. Some whispered she was blessed, others feared her. She knew nothing of her royal blood, yet the world had marked her from birth. Aelwyn lived simply, her days spent tending the sick and the poor. She had friends, though few truly knew her. She had dreams too, dreams of fire, silver crowns, and a man with eyes like storm clouds. The dreams came in flashes, leaving her with a strange ache in her chest, a feeling that she belonged somewhere else, somewhere greater than this quiet village. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, a commotion stirred in the village square. Horse hooves pounded the dirt and armored soldiers rode through the streets, shouting orders. Villagers scattered, closing doors and hiding behind carts. Aelwyn stood frozen for a moment, her heart pounding. The soldiers dismounted near her small cottage. "Where is the rebel leader?" one demanded. "Show yourselves or you will be punished." Aelwyn's heart skipped a beat. She did not know of rebels, nor did she care for politics, but something inside her stirred, a strange, protective force that she could not explain. Without thinking, she stepped in front of her cottage, her hands trembling slightly. I do not know of any rebels," she said, her voice calm but firm. The soldiers laughed. "The girl who thinks she is safe," one muttered, approaching her. But as he reached out, the ground beneath his feet shuddered. Rocks cracked, and a sudden gust of wind threw him backward. Aelwyn gasped, startled by her own strength. She did not understand it, but the village had seen enough. Whispers spread quickly. The healer's power was real. Some saw her as a savior, others as a threat. That night, Aylwin lay awake, unable to stop thinking about the dreams that had haunted her since childhood. And for the first time, she wondered if the dreams were trying to tell her something or warn her. A few nights later, a stranger appeared at her door. He was tall and cloaked in dark armor, his face partially hidden by a hood. He carried a sword at his side and eyes that seemed to weigh the world. He collapsed at her doorstep, bleeding from a wound on his shoulder. Aylwin rushed to him without hesitation. Her hands pressed against the wound, her touch gentle but commanding. "Who are you?" she asked, fear and curiosity intertwining. The man's voice was low and pained. "I serve the king," he whispered, though his eyes did not lie. "But I cannot follow him any more." Aylwin felt a strange connection to him, as though the bond went beyond this life. His presence stirred something deep inside her, a feeling she had never known, a pull that was both frightening and familiar. Over the next days, the man, whose name was Callan, recovered under Aylwin's care. He spoke little, but his gaze lingered on her, studying her with a mix of admiration and worry. He told fragments of the kingdom's turmoil, the cruelty of the king, and the dark magic that had begun to spread across the land. Aylwin listened, each word igniting a fire in her heart. She felt an anger she could not explain, a longing for justice that had always been buried under her simple life. She wanted to fight to reclaim what was lost, but for now she only had Callan and the secret that lay within her. Callan, too, felt drawn to her. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, brave, gentle, and yet touched by something ancient and powerful. He had served the throne all his life, but now he wondered if his loyalty had been misplaced. In her presence, he saw a future he had never dared to imagine, a future where he could atone for the sins of his past. One night, as a storm raged outside, the village was attacked. Shadows moved like living things, and the air crackled with dark energy. Callan drew his sword, stepping between Aylwin and the attackers. "Run with me," he shouted over the thunder. "Take nothing, just run." Aylwin's heart raced. She had never held a sword, never imagined herself a fighter, yet something inside her rose. She grabbed Callan's hand, and together they fled into the forest. Lightning lit the trees, casting their shadows long and strange. Behind them the village burned, and Aylwin realized for the first time that she could not return to the life she had known. As they ran, Aylwin's dreams became clearer. She saw herself standing on a throne, her hair blowing in the wind, a crown of silver upon her head. She saw Malrek, her uncle, standing in the shadows, unaware that the heir lived. She saw Callan beside her, his hands steady and his eyes full of something she could not yet name. By dawn, they reached a hidden glade, far from the chaos. Both were exhausted, wet from the rain and breathing heavily. Callan looked at her, a mixture of awe and caution in his eyes. "You are stronger than I thought," he said softly. "But you must know the world you were born into is not the one you live in now. It is darker and more dangerous." Aylwin's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" she asked, fear and curiosity warring in her chest. "You are the lost heir of Eldoria," Callan said, his voice low, almost reverent. "Your uncle, he took the throne with blood. But the crown will not be his forever, not if you survive." Aylwin's breath caught. The words felt like a flame in her chest, lighting a fire that had been dormant for years. He killed my parents," she whispered. Callan's eyes darkened. "Yes. And he will stop at nothing to keep what he took." The weight of her destiny pressed down on her shoulders, heavy and real. She was no longer just a healer in a quiet village. She was the last hope of a kingdom, the rightful queen. And the road ahead would be filled with danger, betrayal, and choices that could change the fate of Eldoria forever. That night, as the storm cleared and the first light of dawn touched the trees, Aylwin stared at the horizon. She felt the pull of the crown, the whisper of destiny, and the fire of justice. Somewhere beyond the mountains, her uncle ruled with cruelty, unaware that the lost heir had survived. She turned to Kalen, who watched her with quiet intensity. "What do we do now?" she asked. He took her hand, his grip firm and steady. "Now," he said, "we survive. Then we reclaim what is yours." And for the first time in her life, Aylwin felt the weight of her true power and the storm that would follow. Cliffhanger. Every leaf whispered secrets, and the wind carried the scent of rain-soaked earth. Aylwin and Kalen moved cautiously along the narrow path, the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future pressing on them. Aylwin's heart still raced from the revelation of her true identity, and Kalen's eyes followed her every step, alert to danger and captivated by the power she did not yet fully understand. "You must rest," Kalen said gently as they reached a small clearing. "The journey ahead is long, and Malrek's soldiers will not stop searching for you." Aylwin shook her head, her dark hair clinging to her face from the rain. "I cannot rest while my people suffer," she said. "Even if I do not know them yet, they are my people. And I must protect them." Kalen studied her silently. The fire in her eyes reminded him of the queen she was destined to become, yet he also saw the innocence she still carried, the girl who had grown up unaware of her royal blood, unaware of the world she had been born into. He had sworn loyalty to a king who had destroyed everything he once loved, and now he found himself questioning that oath. Every moment spent with Aylwin made the chains around his heart feel heavier, yet freer at the same time. They reached a small, hidden cabin nestled between the roots of a great oak tree. It was simple, barely furnished, but it was safe for now. Inside, a fire crackled, warming their chilled bodies. Aylwin tended to Kalen's wounds, her hands steady and sure, while he watched her, admiration and unease warring in his eyes. "You heal more than bodies," he said quietly. "You heal fear, even mine." Aylwin looked up, startled by the intensity in his gaze. "You are not a stranger to fear," she said. "I can see it in you, but you carry it differently than most. You hide it behind duty and steel." Kalen lowered his gaze, hiding the conflict that twisted within him. "Duty has been my life and my curse," he admitted. "I have served a king who would not hesitate to destroy everything I hold dear, and yet I remained loyal, thinking I had no other path, until now." Aylwin felt a strange warmth in her chest, a connection she could not explain. She had always felt alone, as if the world had forgotten her, yet here was a man who understood something of the burden she carried. The next morning, they set out toward the mountains that marked the border of Eldoria. Aylwin's dreams had grown more vivid, guiding her steps. She saw visions of a crown, of her parents, and of her uncle Malrek, standing in the shadowed throne room, unaware that the lost heir lived. She felt a pull she could not resist, a sense that destiny awaited her in the heart of her homeland. As they traveled, Kalen spoke of Malrek's reign. "He is cruel, yes," he said, "but he is clever. He surrounds himself with dark magic and loyal soldiers. Many who might have opposed him are too afraid to act." Aylwin listened, her hands brushing against the hilt of a small dagger she had taken from the cabin. "Then we must be clever too," she said. "We must not only survive, we must gather allies. The people will need hope, and I must be ready to give it to them." Kalen nodded. "I will teach you what I can, sword, strategy, and how to see the traps that Malrek lays before us. But there is more than just soldiers to fear, there is magic as well." Aylwin frowned. She had felt magic within herself, the strange pull that had saved her village. "What kind of magic?" she asked. Kalen hesitated. "Old magic, dark magic, things that twist the mind and the land. Malrek has learned to use it, but not fully. There are limits to what even he can do, yet those limits are dangerous. The forest itself can betray us if we are not careful." Days passed, and the journey grew harder. They crossed rivers swollen with rain, climbed rocky slopes, and slept under the stars. Aylwin's strength surprised Kalen. She learned quickly, not only in swordplay but in understanding the subtle ways of the world. Animals seemed to sense her presence, and trees and stones responded to her touch. Even Kaelin, a man hardened by war, could not help but feel awe in her presence. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, they set camp near a cliff that overlooked a valley. The air was crisp, and the sky blushed with the colors of sunset. Aylwin sat silently, her thoughts tangled with fear, anger, and longing. She had lost her parents, her home, and the life she had known. And yet, for the first time, she felt purpose, something to fight for, something worth risking everything. Kaelin watched her, a shadow of doubt in his eyes. "Do you fear what comes next?" he asked softly. Aylwin shook her head. "Fear is natural," she said, "but I will not let it control me. I will not hide. I will face it, whatever it may be." Kaelin studied her, sensing the quiet strength that lay beneath her calm exterior. "You are not like other heirs I have known," he said. "You carry your blood with honor, not pride, and that makes you dangerous in ways Malrek cannot imagine." That night, as they slept under the open sky, the air grew cold and still. Aylwin awoke suddenly, feeling a presence nearby. She sat up, her senses alert, and saw a shadow moving silently among the trees. Her heart raced, and she reached instinctively for her dagger. Kaelin stirred beside her. "What is it?" he whispered. Aylwin pointed toward the shadow. "Someone is watching us," she said. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself under the moonlight. It was not a soldier, but a messenger of some kind, an old woman cloaked in gray, her eyes bright with knowledge. "You are far from safety," the woman said, her voice calm but urgent. "The king knows the heir lives. He will send everything to find you. You must move quickly and trust no one." Aylwin felt a chill run through her. "How do you know I am the heir?" she asked. The woman smiled faintly. "Some things cannot be hidden. Your blood calls to the world, and the world answers. You have a destiny that cannot be denied." Before Aylwin could ask more, the woman vanished into the trees, leaving only a swirl of mist behind. The warning hung heavy in the air. Kaelin rose, his eyes scanning the forest. "She is right," he said grimly. "We must move before dawn." The next day they crossed into a narrow pass, where cliffs rose steep and sharp above them. The air was thin and cold, but Aylwin felt alive in a way she had never known. Every step toward Eldoria was a step toward reclaiming her past and shaping her future. As they climbed, Kaelin spoke of the prophecy that had long haunted the kingdom. "It is said that the lost heir will rise not through force alone, but through the strength of the heart and the courage to face darkness. That heir is you, Aylwin, but the path will not be easy. Many will seek to stop you, and some will be closer than you think." Aylwin felt a shiver. The words made her heart beat faster, but they also strengthened her resolve. She would face Malrek, she would reclaim the throne, and she would not do it alone. As night fell, they camped near a frozen stream, the mountains casting long shadows across the valley. Aylwin sat close to the fire, her thoughts heavy with the memories she could not yet remember. She longed for the warmth of her parents' embrace, for the comfort of a home that no longer existed. And yet, a strange hope began to grow within her, a hope that she could rebuild, that she could rise stronger than before. Kaelin watched her quietly, sensing the fire within her soul. He wanted to protect her, to guide her, and yet he knew that the journey would test them both in ways they could not yet imagine. The bond between them was growing, silent but undeniable, a connection forged in danger and shared purpose. Suddenly, the night was broken by a distant cry, a sound carried on the wind, sharp and haunting. Aylwin froze, her instincts alert. Kaelin's hand went to his sword. "They know where we are," he said, his voice low and tense. "They are coming for you." Aylwin felt her pulse quicken. The journey ahead would be more dangerous than she had imagined. Her uncle's reach was long, and Malrek would not rest until the heir was found. She clenched her fists, feeling the strange power within her stir. "I am ready," she said quietly. "We face them together." Kaelin nodded, his eyes dark with concern and admiration. "Together," he agreed. As they prepared for what was to come, a shadow moved silently above them, high on the cliffs. Someone watched, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. A whisper drifted down on the wind, almost like a promise and a threat combined. The lost heir is alive, and soon all of Eldoria will know her power. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and the mountains waited. The storm of destiny had begun, and there would be no turning back. Cliffhanger. Kaelin drew his sword, and Aelwyn felt the power in her blood rise, ready to face whatever came next. The forest cleared into rolling hills, where the wind whispered through the tall grass like a secret. Aelwyn and Kaelin moved carefully, the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future heavy on their shoulders. Every step toward Eldoria reminded Aelwyn that she was no longer the simple healer from a quiet village. She was the last heir, the rightful queen, and her uncle's cruelty had made her rise a necessity. Yet the more she learned about her heritage, the more the weight of responsibility pressed upon her. She thought of her parents, King Alaric and Queen Seraphine, their lives stolen before she could even remember them. Every moment she spent with Kaelin, every story of Malrek's tyranny she heard, made her blood boil with a mixture of grief and determination. They had been traveling for weeks now, avoiding patrols and dark magic traps. Kaelin taught her how to move silently, how to fight with both sword and strategy, and how to read the signs of danger in the land. Aelwyn absorbed it all with surprising ease. Her instincts were sharper than she had ever known, and the magic within her stirred with every challenge they faced. One evening, they reached a hidden glen at the edge of the mountains. A crystal-clear lake reflected the fading light of the sun, and the air was still, almost sacred. Aelwyn knelt by the water, dipping her hands into its cold surface. She felt something awaken deep within her, a pulse of power that seemed to echo from the very earth itself. Kaelin watched her quietly. "You are more than just the heir," he said softly. "You are a force the kingdom has not seen in generations. Malrek cannot understand what he has set in motion by letting you live." Aelwyn looked at him, uncertainty and hope mingling in her eyes. "I feel it," she admitted. "Something inside me, something I cannot control. I see visions sometimes, flashes of fire, silver crowns, and shadows moving in the palace. I think it is my past calling me." Kaelin nodded. "It is your blood. It remembers what was stolen. It remembers the throne." For a long moment they were silent, two souls bound by shared purpose and unspoken longing. The tension between them had grown, subtle but undeniable, each aware of the connection but cautious of its consequences. In the quiet of the glen, the world seemed to pause, waiting for them to take the next step in their journey. The peace was broken by a sudden scream from the forest. Instantly, both were on their feet. Shadows moved among the trees, figures cloaked in dark robes and carrying weapons that glimmered with unnatural light. Malrek's soldiers had found them, guided by both tracking skill and dark magic. Kaelin drew his sword, its steel gleaming in the dim light. "Stay close," he warned, positioning himself between Aelwyn and the attackers. "Do not let fear control you. Trust your instincts." Aelwyn nodded, her heart racing, but she did not falter. As the soldiers advanced, she felt the strange power within her rise, her blood humming with energy she had never felt before. She raised her hands instinctively, and a wave of force erupted from her, sending the soldiers stumbling backward. Trees bent as if in response to her command, and the earth beneath their feet quivered. Kaelin's eyes widened in surprise and admiration. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said, voice tense but filled with awe. "We must keep moving. Malrek will not stop until he claims what is his by fear, not by right." Together they fought and ran, moving through the forest like shadows themselves. Aelwyn's power seemed to grow with every step, yet she realized that it was not just strength that would reclaim her throne. It would be courage, wisdom, and the ability to inspire others. Days later, they arrived at an abandoned watchtower near the border of Eldoria. The stone walls were old, but they provided safety and shelter. Inside, Aelwyn tended to minor wounds, while Kalen cleaned his sword and mapped the land they would soon cross. "I've been thinking," Aelwyn said cautiously, "about the people we might find in the kingdom. If Malrek rules through fear, many will have forgotten hope. How do we restore it?" Kalen looked at her seriously. "We cannot do it all at once. First, we survive. Then we gather allies. We find those who remember the old ways, the loyalty to the true crown. We show them that the heir lives. And when the time comes, we act, not just to take back the throne, but to bring justice to Eldoria." Aelwyn absorbed his words, feeling the weight of them. Justice and mercy were not the same thing, and she understood that the path she would take could not be guided by anger alone. Her parents had ruled with fairness and compassion, and she wanted to honor that legacy, even as she prepared for the battles ahead. That night, as a chill wind blew through the tower, Aelwyn dreamed. She was back in the palace as a child, playing in a sunlit courtyard. Her parents were smiling, reaching out to her with warmth and love. Then the sky darkened and shadows crept across the walls. Malrek stood before her, the crown heavy on his head, and her parents were gone. She awoke with a start, gasping for breath. Kalen was beside her instantly, his hand steady on her shoulder. "Aelwyn," he said softly, "it was a dream. You are here and you are safe for now. But you must remember, the path ahead will be filled with such shadows. You cannot let them control you." Aelwyn nodded, determination replacing fear. "I will not," she said. "I will face them. I will reclaim what was stolen." Over the next weeks they moved closer to Eldoria. Aelwyn's confidence grew, and Kalen noticed it with both pride and concern. She was learning not only to fight, but to trust her instincts and the strange magic that flowed through her veins. They became a team, not just in survival but in purpose. The bond between them deepened, silent but undeniable, a connection forged in danger, shared dreams, and mutual respect. One evening, as they camped near a hidden waterfall, Kalen finally spoke of the curse that had bound him for years. "I was not always free to choose," he said, his voice low and serious. "Malrek placed a binding on me long ago, though I did not understand it fully. I am bound by blood to his throne, and should I fail him, the curse would take my life." Aelwyn's eyes widened. "Then by staying with me you risk yourself," he nodded. "Yes, but I cannot let him hurt you, not now, not ever." Her heart quickened. She wanted to reach for him, to comfort him, but she also knew that their journey demanded focus and strength. "We will face it together," she said. "Whatever comes, we will survive, and we will fight." The journey grew more perilous as they neared the capital. The forests thickened, and strange creatures moved silently among the trees. Aelwyn's visions became more vivid, showing her glimpses of Malrek's palace, the throne room darkened with cruelty, and the people who waited for hope they did not yet know existed. Finally, they reached a hidden valley just beyond the capital's walls. It was here that they would gather their first allies, those who remembered the old king and queen, those who had resisted Malrek's rule quietly for years. Aelwyn felt a surge of power and purpose, knowing that the moment to act was drawing near. Yet even as she prepared, a shadow moved in the night. Malrek had sent a scout, a sorcerer loyal to his will, to find the lost heir. The figure crept silently through the trees, watching Aelwyn and Kalen with eyes that glowed like embers in the dark. Aelwyn sensed the danger before it appeared, the magic within her warning her of the threat. She reached for Kalen's hand. "We are not alone," she whispered. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Prepare yourself," he said, drawing his sword. "They will not give up without a fight. Malrek will come for you, and we must be ready." The sorcerer struck at dawn, sending a wave of dark energy toward the valley. Trees bent and cracked under the force, and the earth trembled. Aelwyn felt her power surge, a bright light spilling from her hands, countering the darkness. The clash was fierce, shaking the very ground beneath them. Kalen fought with precision, defending Aelwyn as she unleashed her power, each strike of magic sending the sorcerer back. For a moment it seemed as though they could hold the line. Aelwyn felt the thrill of purpose, of power she had only glimpsed in dreams. She was the heir, the rightful queen, and she would not be denied. But then the sorcerer vanished into a swirl of shadows, leaving only a whisper carried by the wind. This is only the beginning. The true battle awaits in the palace. Aylwin and Kaelin stood in the valley, their breaths ragged, hearts pounding. The warning hung in the air like a storm on the horizon. The journey to reclaim the throne was only beginning, and the dangers were far greater than they had imagined. Yet Aylwin felt no fear. Her parents' legacy, the bond with Kaelin, and the power within her guided her. She would face the coming storm, not with anger alone, but with courage, wisdom, and the fire of hope that would inspire a kingdom. Together, they moved forward, toward the capital, toward destiny, and toward the throne that awaited the lost heir of Eldoria. Cliffhanger. Your uncle knows you live. Prepare yourself, for the crown will demand more than blood. The capital of Eldoria rose before them like a shadowed jewel, dark towers reaching toward the sky. The walls, once gleaming under the sun, now bore the scars of Malrek's cruel reign. Smoke curled from chimneys, and the streets below were silent, as though the city itself held its breath. Aylwin and Kaelin crouched atop a hill, surveying the kingdom that had been stolen from her. "This is it," Aylwin whispered, her hand gripping the hilt of her dagger. "The place where it all began and where it will end." Kaelin nodded, his face grim. "Malrek will not give up easily. He has dark magic, loyal soldiers, and fear on his side. But you have something stronger. Courage, truth, and the blood of kings. Remember that." Aylwin felt the power within her stir, a pulse that had grown with every trial, every journey through forest, river, and mountain. She had faced shadows, survived betrayal, and discovered the fire in her own soul. Now, standing on the threshold of destiny, she knew she could not fail, not only for herself but for Eldoria. Night fell, and the city seemed even more oppressive under the moonlight. They moved silently, slipping through hidden alleys and forgotten passages that Kaelin knew from his years serving the palace. Every step brought them closer to the heart of Malrek's power, the throne room, where the blood of Aylwin's parents had been spilled years ago. As they approached the inner walls, a patrol emerged from the shadows, soldiers armored and armed, their eyes cold and determined. Kaelin whispered, "Stay close. I will lead and you will follow my movements." Aylwin nodded. Her heartbeat quickened, but she no longer felt fear as she had before. She felt purpose. She felt destiny. Together they moved like shadows themselves, striking with precision and silence. The soldiers fell one by one, overwhelmed by Kaelin's skill and Aylwin's growing power. When the last of them lay still, the path to the throne room was clear. Inside the palace, the air was thick with tension. Torches flickered, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Malrek sat on the throne, his crown heavy on his head, his expression a mixture of surprise and fury. He had known they were coming, he always did, but he had underestimated the lost heir. Aylwin stepped forward, her eyes locked on her uncle. "It is over, Malrek," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The throne does not belong to you. It never did. It belongs to me, the true heir of Eldoria." Malrek's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Child," he said, "you are brave to face me, but bravery alone will not save you. Do you think the throne can be taken without blood, without power? You know nothing of what it means to rule this kingdom." Aylwin felt a surge of energy within her, a pulse that connected her to the very walls, the very air of Eldoria. "I know more than you think," she said. "I know love, I know justice, I know the strength of my people and the truth of my blood. This kingdom was stolen by fear, but it will be restored by courage." Malrek rose, dark magic swirling around his hands, casting shadows that danced like living creatures. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the torches flickered as if responding to the tension in the room. Kaelin moved to Aylwin's side, sword drawn, his eyes steady. "I will protect you," he said quietly. "No harm will come to you while I draw breath." Aylwin glanced at him, a mixture of gratitude and something deeper in her gaze. "Then we end this," she said. The battle began. Malrek struck first, his magic tearing through the air like lightning, but Aelwyn's power surged to meet it. Waves of energy clashed, shaking the walls and casting the throne room into a storm of light and shadow. Kaelin moved with precision, striking soldiers who appeared as if from nowhere, defending Aelwyn with every ounce of skill he had learned over the years. For a moment the fight seemed endless. Malrek's magic was strong, fueled by anger and greed, but Aelwyn's strength was something older, something purer. She drew upon the blood of her parents, the lessons of her childhood, the hopes of her people, and the bond she shared with Kaelin. Her power became a force that could not be ignored. Malrek faltered. Rage twisted his face, and the shadows around him shivered as if sensing his weakness. Aelwyn advanced, her steps steady, her eyes locked on him. "It is over," she said again, this time with finality. Malrek's final spell struck, a dark wave of energy that surged toward Aelwyn, but she met it with a bright pulse of her own magic. The collision sent sparks flying, the room trembling with raw power. Kaelin watched in awe as the girl he had sworn to protect, once a healer, once a lost child, stood as the rightful queen, radiant and unyielding. With a final surge, Aelwyn unleashed the power she had nurtured for so long. The shadows twisted and shattered, Malrek's dark magic crumbling around him. The crown he had stolen trembled on his head. His soldiers fled or fell to the ground, their loyalty broken by the strength of truth and courage. Malrek fell to his knees, defeated not just by power but by the unyielding will of the lost heir. His eyes met Aelwyn's, filled with disbelief and fury. You cannot do this," he whispered. Aelwyn stepped closer, her voice calm and strong. "I am not just a child of blood," she said. "I am the heir of Eldoria. Your reign of fear ends tonight." In that moment, the crown itself seemed to call to Aelwyn, glowing softly with a light that had been dormant for years. She reached out, and the crown lifted gently from Malrek's head, floating toward her. The magic within it recognized the true heir, and with a whisper of wind, it settled upon her own. Aelwyn felt a rush of energy, warmth and power flooding through her. The palace trembled, but it was no longer oppressive. It was alive, responding to the rightful queen. Malrek's power had failed because it had been rooted in fear, but Aelwyn's was rooted in love, justice, and courage. Kaelin stepped forward, lowering his sword. "It is done," he said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. "The kingdom is yours." Aelwyn looked at him, feeling the bond they had formed through trials, danger, and shared purpose. "We did it together," she said. "I could not have done this alone." Malrek was taken away, bound and powerless. His reign of cruelty had ended, and the people of Eldoria, who had long suffered in silence, began to emerge from the shadows, drawn by the power and presence of their true queen. Aelwyn walked through the halls of the palace, feeling a connection to her parents and the legacy they had left behind. She saw the courtiers and citizens bowing, not out of fear, but out of recognition and respect. The kingdom breathed again, free from the darkness that had consumed it for so long. Yet the journey had changed her. She was no longer the child hidden in a distant village. She was the queen, tempered by struggle, guided by wisdom, and aware of the responsibility that came with power. She would rule with justice, courage, and compassion, honoring her parents' legacy while shaping a new future for Eldoria. That evening, as the sun set behind the palace, Kaelin approached her. His armor was dented, his cloak torn, but his eyes were steady. "The kingdom is safe," he said softly, "for now." Aelwyn turned to him, her heart full. "It is more than safe," she said. "It is free. And it will grow stronger, because we face the darkness together." He reached for her hand, and she did not hesitate. Their fingers intertwined, a silent promise of partnership, trust, and something deeper that neither had spoken aloud but both had felt from the beginning. "You saved me," Kaelin said quietly. "Not just the kingdom, but me." Aelwyn smiled, the first true smile in years. "We saved each other," she said. As the night deepened, Aelwyn stood upon the balcony of the throne room looking out over her kingdom. The stars sparkled above Eldoria, and the moonlight touched the towers with a silver glow. She could feel the pulse of magic, the heartbeat of the land, and the promise of hope that would guide her people. She placed her hand on the crown, feeling its weight, and whispered a vow. "I will protect this kingdom, honor my parents, and guide our people with courage and love." Behind her, Kaelin stood silently, ready to face whatever challenges remained. The bond they shared had been forged in fire, strengthened by trials, and now tempered by triumph. And as they looked out over Eldoria, a quiet wind carried a promise across the land. The heir lives, the crown is restored, and the kingdom will rise again.